Good morning, my friends. Good morning, and welcome back. One of my absolute favorite times of the week, the EQ Skills Clinic. It's been a little while. We were all wrapped up with the Courageous Intimacy Boot Camp, so we missed our skills clinic last week in light of all the amazing training and conversations and transformations that we had last week. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you might be new around here. We did an 8-day training and coaching event last week. And, I've done several of these. I've done several of these sorts of longer training events, immersive training events. I call them boot camps. And I have to say, I was talking with some of the participants that joined us this last time. And I have to say that Michelle says, how can I not show up with the title of this week's Skills Clinic? I saw that you were going to show up today, Michelle. I know this is like just for you. Isn't it like the universe is conspiring for you, Michelle? Because we plan these topics, like a month in advance. So this has been planned for quite some time. So I'm really glad that you're here. Anyway, I was talking with some of the boot camp participants, and some of them that have done several boot camps with me were saying that the one we just did, the one that we just wrapped up, was by far one of the most transformative experiences compared to some of the others. I think we allowed ourselves to go really deep with this one. We had some very profound and intimate conversations. I know that several of you reported that you experienced some significant shifts in terms of your mindset, your communication, and your relationship management skills. So I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased by how the last 8 days went for us inside of that boot camp. And we run these very regularly. It's one of my commitments in 2021. So we will have another one coming up within 2 months for sure. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. If you are new around here, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Shyamala. I am a podcast host, media expert for national television, and founder of the EQ Code, a high-touch coaching program for high-performance women who want to transform their relationships and really grow into that emotionally intelligent woman that we talked about so much during the boot camp. I'm also the founder of a psychotherapy clinic. I practiced as a registered psychotherapist and a registered couple and family therapist for nearly 2 decades. I'm a wife and I'm a very proud mom. So welcome. I'm really excited. Krista is here with me. Yeah, I'm so excited to get back to these clinics as well. So if you're watching me live, please say hello, drop an emoji, drop a wave, drop a hello for me. And if you are watching the replay, please drop a hashtag replay. We always like to know which topics are of interest to you and which topics get the most views and the most response, because we are always revisiting our content and making sure that it is useful to you. So today, my friends, we are going to talk about, today's topic is perfectionism. And for me, I wanted to talk about perfectionism in the realm of leadership and leadership skills. When I often teach on perfectionism, I often teach on it, and I often talk about it as a mindset skill. And it absolutely is, well, I should say it's a mindset block. It's a mindset trap. And I often teach mindset skills to overcome perfectionism. And what I want you to understand today, as I talk about perfectionism, is I want you to begin to see and understand perfectionism as probably the single greatest mindset trap that will block your leadership capacity. So one of the things that I believe about every woman that I work with is that we all have leadership capacity within us. And I also believe that often what gets in the way of us executing fully on our leadership capacity are emotional intelligence skills. And if we can begin to hone those emotional intelligence skills, they have a tremendous impact on our capacity for contribution, right? So whether that's that's how we show up at home or how we show up in our professional lives, our capacity for contribution, our capacity for leadership, our capacity to show up fully really does depend on our ability to execute on those emotional intelligence skills. So that's the frame through which we are going to talk about perfectionism. Our teachings here are usually about 20 minutes or less. I like to keep them quick, to the point, and give you some tips that you can walk away with. So perfectionism, I want you to think about it this way. Perfectionism is something that will literally take your confidence on a wild, wild ride, and not in a good way. Like, not one of those, like those positive, fun, wild rides, right? Perfectionism will literally take your confidence on this wild, windy, back and forth ride. It will literally eat away at your confidence. So the idea behind perfectionism, the mindset or the cognitive structure behind perfectionism, is that I have to get it 100% right 100% of the time. That is the lens through which the perfectionist looks at the world, right? And what I know about high performing, high achieving women is that most of us at one time or another have struggled with perfectionism. And in fact, perfectionism is one of the mindset traps that continues to come up again and again and again for high achieving, high performing, ambitious, driven, mission focused women. It's a trap that we can very easily, very, very easily find ourselves falling into. It is a trap that I have to work at intentionally and consistently at not falling into this particular trap. And I'll tell you, it most often comes up when we are doing something new. When we are moving into uncharted territory in our lives, that could be anything. It could be something in our personal lives, a new relationship, a new developmental stage within our family system. And it also comes up a lot in our professional lives. I know for me, that's where it comes up for me, is when I am starting a new project, I'm taking on a new role, I'm venturing into, like I said, uncharted territory, unknown territory, unfamiliar territory. That's when perfectionism will rear its ugly head and begin to block my leadership capacity. So the trouble with this particular thinking trap is that our subconscious mind knows that it's impossible to hold ourselves to the standard that perfectionism tells us is required, right? So we are simply setting ourselves up for failure. So if you think about it, remember the idea, the mindset, the structure behind perfectionism is I have to get it 100% right 100% of the time. Well, our brains, our minds are a really fascinating landscape where we can say something to ourselves consciously, like I have to get it 100% right 100% of the time. And then on a subconscious level, our mind also knows, Shyamala, that is not possible. You're not going to be able to do that. And so what happens is we get trapped in this mindset that literally sets us up for failure. It can lead to procrastination. It can lead to just starting projects and stopping them. It can lead to all sorts of things. But let me get into those. I actually have notes so I don't get totally off track, because I can get off track with these teachings. So as I started saying today at the top of today's session, is that I truly have come to understand that perfectionism is probably the single greatest block to our leadership capacity. So I want you to consider that. And here's the reason, is that leadership requires a few critical elements. I mean, there's several, but what I want to share with you today are three particular aspects of leadership that perfectionism simply will not make space for. So when you're struggling with perfectionism and you're trying to execute fully on your mission, there are three critical elements to leadership that perfectionism will literally block. Okay. So I want to go through those three today. They're really important. The first one is risk or risk taking. The ability to take risks, the willingness to take risks, even having a little bit of excitement around taking risks in the leadership realm. It's really, really important, right? So one of the most important things that we need to embrace as leaders is risk taking, is getting comfortable with risk, is knowing and understanding that in order to hit that next level of success, in order to really move towards our hopes and our dreams and our passions and whatever that thing is for you, in order to make that movement towards that space is unfamiliar. That space, my friends, is unknown. That space is full of uncertainty. And if you are not moving towards the unfamiliar, the unknown, the uncertain, the risky in your lives, what's probably happening is you're remaining stagnant, right? You're remaining stagnant. So if you're feeling some angst coming up for you, right, as you're moving towards these new and unfamiliar territories in your life, I want you to know that you are in good company. We know that the top 10% of industry's leaders have recognized that being able to sit with the discomfort of risk taking is all part and parcel of that journey. The second critical element that perfectionism simply will not make space for is failure. Failure, failure, failure. It is this one's a non-negotiable. It is an absolute non-negotiable. If you are going to show up powerfully in this world, and if you are going to execute at your fullest capacity, you will absolutely need to get comfortable with the art of failure. And there truly is an art and science to failure, I believe. I really believe that, right? That for me, I can certainly say growing up, failure was like the worst like F word ever, right? I avoided anything that could potentially lead to failure. Anything. Personally and professionally. I've got a million stories, right? About how I said no to opportunities. I shied away from opportunities. I made myself small. I would shrink just so that I did not have to put myself in the space of potential failure. Okay. So failure, that's a non-negotiable. We need to get comfortable with the art of failure. And the only way to do that is by doing the first thing, which is risk taking. We have to be able to take risks and risk failure in order to begin to overcome perfectionism and truly execute at our fullest capacity. The third one is probably my personal favorite, and it's the one that I really do try to practice. It's made a really significant difference in my life. It was a pretty significant shift for me to make, meaning that this one was not particularly easy for me to do, and that is action. I'm going to recap all of these for you, but action. Taking action is the single most productive thing you can do right now to propel your mission forward, right? And here's the thing, that most action that we take, probably about 95% of the actions that I take on a daily basis are imperfect. Right? And if we can embrace that most actions that we take are imperfect, it will actually allow us to move into action a little more quickly and not get stuck in perfectionism's best friend, which is procrastination. So I want you to remember that perfectionism and procrastination really go hand in hand. They love to hang out. Perfectionism is the one that sort of calls on procrastination. Perfectionism is like, don't do it now. You're not going to get it 100% right anyway. So don't bother. Don't bother taking any action. Don't do anything. You're going to look silly. People are going to laugh. You're going to fail. You're not going to get it right. You don't have all the answers. So perfectionism fills sort of fills your head with all of these ideas and then invites procrastination into your life. So the ability to take imperfect action is really, really critical when it comes to becoming that emotionally intelligent woman and that leader that is really executing at her fullest capacity. So I want you to remember that regardless of what that action is, just take it, do it anyway. And remember this, because I remind myself of this all the time. I probably say it to my daughter, I don't know how many times a day. I say it to myself. I say it to my team. We can always course correct along the way. We can always course correct along the way. We can always make a shift. We can always make a turn. We can always make a transition. We can always decide that what we had tried is totally not working and we're going to start over. I don't actually believe there's really ever a starting over, because as long as you've taken action, you're in movement, right? So action is that last piece. And one of the things that I say to my private clients, and I hope it becomes a bit of a mantra for them, is that action alleviates anxiety. Action alleviates anxiety. And we know that there is a very strong correlation between perfectionism and anxiety. If you are stuck and struggling with perfectionism, you are probably feeling anxious. There's like no way around it. And all of this goes back to that subconscious mind that is saying to you 100%, 100% right 100% of the time. You can't do that. Nobody can do that, right? Your subconscious mind knows you are setting yourself up for failure if you tell yourself you have to get it 100% right. So my friends, perfectionism will absolutely block your leadership capacity simply because it will not make space for three particular skills, particular factors that are critical for high performance leadership: risk-taking, getting comfortable with the art of failure. I want you to think of your failure as art, and action taking, right? So we want to actually move towards activities that will allow us to take risks, practice failure, and take action. Action alleviates anxiety. So listen, if your mission is burning inside of you and you know you are holding yourself back as a leader, I want you to consider turning the volume down on perfectionism and allowing yourself to show up fully and unapologetically. My friends, it was so great to see you today and to spend time with you. I hope this was helpful. Please leave your questions, your comments, your all the things down below, and I will see you again next week for another EQ Skills Clinic. Have a great day, guys.